Thank you, everybody. I was a little concerned after the first speaker because Steve was pretty inspirational. He's the kind of one that once you've done it, you want to go on out and go, right, I want to have some properties, I want to do some development, etc., etc. So that was quite an inspirational speech. But then we got into planning and tax, and now I have a bit of a dry subject in insurance, but one that is absolutely essential if you're a property developer or you have this is big assets and big money, and things can go wrong quite quickly, and that's why we try to give as best a professional advice we can going forward. Of you guys, any hands for developers out there? Is there any developers, or are we mostly property investors? Okay, I'll run through where we start. Okay, so the first part of our slide is about build it. You start off, you find a nice bit of new land, but normally most land these days is brownfield sites. And with brownfield sites, they've got a heritage and a access point difficulties and other bits and pieces that can really, really bring it on. So you start off with your site and you think to yourself, right, I've bought a site, brilliant, nothing on it, don't need insurance. But you do, you need to secure the land around it. You then need to make sure that if anybody trespasses on it, gets themselves hurt, you've got a bit of public liability insurance sitting in there because that way you're covered. It's going to hardly cost you anything, a couple £100 worth of land liability kind of insurance. And then you go on out, you go talk to your architect, or you decide to manage the build yourself, or you get somebody in to project manage it. And that's when you really start kicking into the contracting side of things. So you've got employees on site, a site foreman, manager, somebody like that. And you may also choose to bring your own employees in, or you have subcontractors working for you. Well, you're responsible for them, so the standard contractors all risks policy, you need some employer's liability by statute. That's the one that's the compulsory one that you must have when you're starting to build your site. Public liability, again, anybody walks on site, if you're liable for anything, about 10 million quid's worth. And then you think about the contract works itself. Two styles with contract works. You've got a brand new flat site, you're just building from the ground up. And the reason that contract works is so good is that last day, you're 364 days into a 365-day project. And it burns to the ground. All your efforts need to be recreated. That's what that's covering. Or if you've got an existing plot and an existing building on there, and there's a structure, 50, 100,000 quid's worth of structure, everything that you put onto that in terms of materials and everything else, that's the contract works that need to be covered. And that existing structure, we'd put a little cover in there to make sure that that's there. And you really need to look at your costs and understand what your costs are in terms of rebuild and how it goes, especially as these days you're seeing bricks and other bits and bobs that are to do with the build costs going through the roof. So as you 1 year are a contractor, the next project next year is going to cost you a lot more. That's why you need constant reviews of where your projects are and what you're going to do with that. You might have own plant, you might have hired in plant. Own plant's simple enough, your digger falls over, you want it covered. Hired in plant, of course, if the damage is sustainable for a long time, you've got ongoing hiring charges that need to be covered, as well as actually getting the digger or whatever repaired, and that can take a number of months. So that insurance is all about the build and how you want to do it. You've got JCT type contracts that are in there that are for sort of strict liability. If something goes wrong, we've already talked about land liability. If you're an architect or if you're project managing or putting any design element in, professional indemnity. And then you've got specialist covers for some of the bigger builds from performance bonds, or if you're building on a site that used to be industrial of some sort, there could be something horrible in the grounds. Near the O2, for example, there was a lot of old cyanide plants from years back, and you've got to worry about the environmental liability of what you're building on. You don't know what you're going to cover. That can get some specialist covers going. And everybody's very familiar with NHBC. When you buy a new personal house, you get your NHBC warranty, cracks and everything else, 10-year warranty. But what happens if you're building commercial premises? Well, you want to offer those kind of guarantees over that time. You don't want people coming back to you. So we can put some commercial latent defects insurance in place. And then finally, the project's finished, and we can just pop it on a commercial property owner's insurance. And whenever you also get people building, you have people on site that you want to check their insurances, and you can do a single little tradesman's policy. So very much, that's the kind of commercial things we're looking for if you're wanting to build it. If you want to let it, then you've got landlord's contents and the associated risks. A lot of these big blocks, 200 odd flats, gets committees going into it, and you don't want to be personally liable if you make a wrong decision in your committee. So there's directors and officers cover, which covers your personal liability, and if you've got lifts and everything else, there's statutory inspection and other bits and pieces. Legal expenses if you get into arguments, which can happen on residence-style committees, and goes from there. And then, of course, specialisms in terms of making sure that your home insurance is there if you've built it for yourself, but most people here are investors, as developers, that kind of thing. If you're any of these, estate agents, managing agents, solicitors, conveyors, obviously, once you've done your bit and your client wants to put it on cover, we'd love to talk to you. It's always good to do business that way. But to keep it short and keep it sweet, anybody got any questions that they'd like to ask me regarding insurance? Because those are basically the covers and what we can do. Any questions? Wow. Are you awake? Okay, well, if you haven't got any questions, we're around to talk to. My colleague Lorraine's just down there on the big letting side of things. So if you've got big blocks of flats, managing agent, anything like that, come have a chat with us. Hope you enjoyed your drinks. We loved sponsoring that bit, and I hope you enjoy your day. Thank you very much.